The Republican-led House passing a continuing resolution today, but not without fierce pushback from Democrats. Representative Mike Levin of the 49th District here in California is known for his bipartisan legislative achievements. He is ranked among the top 5% of most effective lawmakers. He's come out fiercely against this continuing resolution, saying a government shutdown would cause real short-term damage, but says the long-term destruction under President Trump and Elon Musk is a far greater threat. The congressman joins us now from Washington, D.C. to discuss this and more. Congressman Levin, thank you for being here on the Rush Hour.
Thanks, Giselle. Good to be with you.
So you voted no on this continuing resolution, not because you say you want a shutdown, but because you see this budget proposal as the destruction, your words, of democracy, namely that it expands the power of the president to make budget decisions, not Congress. So from your lens, what's at stake here?
I think what's at stake is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans benefits, just about everything that the federal government funds. And I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I take great pride in the fact that the Constitution of the United States requires the Congress, not the president, certainly not Elon Musk, to pass the appropriations laws to fund the government. And ultimately, that process has broken down because what's happened is Mike Johnson and House Republicans have effectively ceded control. They have ceded power to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And what that means is that the reckless and arbitrary cuts that we're seeing across the federal government, I mean, just in the last hour, seeing the Department of Education will be cut roughly by half, seeing Social Security being called a Ponzi scheme by Elon Musk, knowing they're going after the Social Security Administration, seeing the wholesale cuts they want for Medicaid and Medicare. The question is, when does this end and who gets hurt? And I think so many tens of millions of Americans will be hurt by these reckless cuts. We want to work together. We want bipartisanship. But sadly, today was the very opposite of that.
Right. And I know you had mentioned this, that the continuing resolution does include these cuts to Medicaid, even though the GOP says that Medicaid will not be cut. But what does it mean for the 80 million Americans that rely on Medicaid, and particularly then for states like California, that if it is cut, may end up shouldering that burden?
Well, there's no way to achieve the $880 billion in cuts to the Energy and Commerce Committee top line, that's their own budget resolution, without drastic cuts to Medicaid. It simply does not add up. The math does not work. So then you ask yourself, what does that really mean for California? I was just at a nursing home just a few days ago in Vista, California, in my district, where 60% of the residents there are on Medi-Cal. That's our state Medicaid program. And what these cuts would mean is that many of those folks and many of the nursing homes and hospitals that serve the Medi-Cal community might be forced to close or dramatically cut back on services. Places like community health clinics and others that serve families and kids and seniors are at great risk. And about 1 in 10 veterans is on Medicaid. So in California, it means drastic cuts. Of course, we're running a budget deficit there in California, which means that they can't very easily pick up the difference. And it really will be devastating. And at the end of the day, we're talking about for what? So that rich people can get more tax breaks. It just doesn't add up.
Well, and Elon Musk says there's widespread fraud, but some of the numbers don't add up to that. But there's also big concerns for us here in California, of course, in this continuing resolution, because it fails to address wildfire recovery aid for Californians, which the president has flip-flopped on whether it will be contingent on conditions. So what concerns you most about that, and what do you say to your constituents?
It's deeply disappointing because I had a number of good conversations with my Republican colleagues about the need to include California wildfire aid. And look, Giselle, I was very open-minded about this bill. My Democratic colleagues will tell you that up until we actually saw the details of the bill, I wanted to see for myself what was in it and what wasn't. And one of the key things that was left out was the billions of dollars that will be needed for California wildfire recovery, whether from FEMA or SBA or HUD or the EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers. $0 were included, nothing. And it's a slap in the face of all Californians. And stunning to me that not a single California Republican stood up against that.
All right. let's talk water. The president bypassed state and local leaders and unleashed water from the Central Valley without any warning to local experts. That water, as you well know, and experts knew, did not make it to Southern California, and the wildfires were already out at that point. You wrote a letter to Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary Doug Burgum asking if DOJ did this without knowing the facts. What were you implying here? What did you want to happen, and what has to happen?
Well, I, as one of the appropriators with oversight over the Army Corps of Engineers budget, was in a hearing the other day where the Army Corps leadership was asking for more money for more projects. And I asked them what I thought were fairly straightforward questions about the release of these 2 million gallons of water. And I got the runaround from the commanding general of the Army Corps. It's been publicly reported that that we know DOJ was at least on the periphery when these decisions were being made, and the Army Corps knew better. They knew that if we had a dry February, March, that we were going to need all of this water for California farmers. And they did this, really, it seems like, for a photo op. And we need to get to the bottom of what happened to prevent it from happening again. There are Army Corps projects all around Southern California, including several in my district. And I want assurance that they're going to follow science and engineering and community engagement rather than the whims of the executive branch. That was the purpose for the letter. I hope to hear back.
Right. Well, let us know when you do. And before I let you go, Congressman, so you've spent 4 terms on the Hill. Huge bipartisan bills passed, 30 in your 4 terms, I read. Yet this is a nexus moment. Republicans, as you well point out, control all branches of government. You say whatever happens now will be on them. But how do you particularly govern through this complex moment when you feel democracy's on the line?
It's very tough, Giselle, and it really saddens me a great deal. You know, when Trump was president, before we got 16 bills signed into law with him as president, and I was hopeful, maybe, naively optimistic that Trump 2.0 would resemble Trump 1.0 and that he would have professionals at the various agencies who'd be willing to work in a good faith way with Congress. That just hasn't been the case at all. There's been this arbitrary and reckless approach by DOJ, and there really hasn't been any desire to work in good faith with Democrats. And as long as that's the case, it's going to be tough to govern in a bipartisan way, just stating the obvious.
Congressman Mike Levin, thank you for being here on The Rush Hour. We appreciate it. I hope you'll come back soon to talk more about these really vital issues. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you.